warehouse acceleration and allowing manufacturing, distribution, and retail type organizations to use our pre-mapped ETL engine. It's pre-mapped for JD Edwards. So it knows how to deal with the Julian dates and the F tables and connecting to the data dictionary and making all that data more accessible and easier to use, but also to Salesforce.
So JD Edwards, sorry, I'll interrupt as I bring up a question or I'll forget. So you would say JD Edwards based, it's legacy JD Edwards based AS400 when you're not E1 type.
It's frankly both. Either or, but in your environment,
okay.
DB2 is fine. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, even though for Andrew's project in particular, we might not be going to JDE right away, it's something that should there be data that's valuable, you're going to have the ability to quickly connect to that and not have to sort through the F0005 and, again, deal with the nuances that these legacy systems, typically bring to the table. So in short, it is hosted. It is all designed to be non-proprietary. And what I mean by that is that, some of the conversations that Charlie and us had is what happens when 3 or 4 years down the road, your data explodes, you want to go in a different route. You might not want Microsoft, right? There might be some newer cutting edge technology that's mind-blowing, has amazing performance and a bunch of other benefits. What happens? So all the data is not locked in a crypto Halo environment. It's something that you're going to be able to use all of the data that has been validated and processed and in calculations and data governance has been applied to, and then be able to repurpose that for whatever application in the future. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And, there are some data quality controls that help non-technical people that are more considered data stewards or power users, the ability to clean the data in the reporting environment. We're not going to clean it in BlueJ or the transactional system like JD Edwards. But let's say, for example, you've got, Albuquerque that's, spelled 6 different ways, like in this example. Well, if I'm trying to run an analysis of all my shipments that were sent to Albuquerque, I, as a report writer, if you will, I would, probably spell Albuquerque the right way. And I probably would try to build in some if-then statements, hopefully, that I'm going to be able to grab everything that I need. What Halo does is it presents it as an issue. There's multiple spellings. We want to correct it to call it Albuquerque, New Mexico, USA. So what it's doing is it's kind of identifying these issues and then allowing you to pick a standardization going forward so that the end users, Andrew and his team, they only see Albuquerque, New Mexico, USA. Okay?
Yep.
And then, general purpose BI, being able to cater to a very broad audience of different skill sets and, frankly, different needs of the data. 30,000-foot overview level. If an executive logs in and they, want to drill into a focal point, maybe it's sales analytics or forecast and planning or inventory, trying to identify where this inventory is actually stored, housed, how many units we have, what the turnover is by DC, all this information, you can start to navigate through the data all the way to essentially getting to what Andrew's team is most interested in, is in more cost to serve and transportation logistics information. So this is where we'll be taking your branch, carrier, and customer type information, allowing the team to see key and standardized metrics, whether that be cost or loads or what the average times are, all within one environment without having to replicate, the wheel over and over again in Excel files and double check the numbers to make sure that they're right. The last thing that I'll show you kind of here in the PowerPoint, I intentionally went quickly over that so we could get it in the product, as anything that someone is seeing in the dashboard, the web-based GUI, they're going to be able to set up parameterized reporting. 8 a.m. Monday morning, I want to be able to subscribe to this report. I can do so. But what we found is a lot of people get those SRS type reports today, and their email box floods with like 40 of them that they don't read, right? They're just like, they do a mass delete. What this will allow the users to do is set up triggers. So based upon variances, what I want to know or be notified. So, if we're in 10% of a variance, I want Andrew to be notified and these 3 other people. So the users can set that up without having to go to you and your team to subscribe to that or build that report.
Okay.
Okay. It's all mobile. You can download the apps out of the app stores. Now, the back end is probably where you have the most interest, I would assume, is really, we're only as good as the data that we're getting access to. How are we going to gain access to the BlueJ data or JD Edwards? So within a PaaS environment, platform as a service, what we're doing is we need, the main thing that we need your team's help for is access to the data, VPN. And we traditionally have used Active Directory settings to secure the data on our side, setting up roles that allow users to gain access to certain metrics or filters, if you will. What Henry, our solutions consultant that's on the phone, is going to walk you through is kind of a 10-minute overview of the back end. And there's some nice features in there that allow you to essentially connect different tables. It writes the SQL, beautifully written SQL queries for you. It's got built-in documentation that is automatically building a very compliant document set that's great for knowledge transfer or compliance or for whatever purpose that you're going to want to use that documentation for without you having to keep track of that over time.
Okay.
Rod, any questions so far?
No, I may have as we move forward here a little bit, but I'm on board so far.
Okay, good. Well, should we start with the back end, or should we start with or do you care about the front end really?
Both. So it doesn't matter whatever your presentation was planned on being, but I do want to get to the back end. But the way we're going is fine right now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in what BI platforms or reporting platforms are you most familiar with?
Well, the 2 that we've had in here, well, we've actually had 3. So we certainly have, from a financial perspective, we have the Essbase platform, and we use Hyperion. From data analysis in the Americas, we have SQL. And then over in Europe, we have Cognos with an Oracle backend. But we've had SAP and IBM's in here as well in the past, but currently the platforms I talked about are the ones that are in place today.
Okay. And the applications team reports up to you, right, Rod?
The applications, well, from the BI perspective, that group reports into me. I have web and portal development and BI, and then Anthony, who couldn't make it, has the JD Edwards analysts and developers.
Okay. Well, what I'm doing, Rod, because Anthony couldn't make it, is I'm recording this session. Probably should have made you aware of that. That I'll post on a private link that you can forward to Anthony, and he can review at his leisure. Does that work?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So everything so far seems to be very much in line with it, at least your kind of Microsoft infrastructure today. And frankly, you shouldn't care that much because we're going to host it all for you, right? We need access via VPN to pull the data. And what we had talked about with BlueJ is we can have those files automatically sent to like a Dropbox or a OneDrive that our solution can pull from. So I think that's something that Andrew and the team had said, you know what, we can set these particular files or tables up. We'll have it automatically sent. That'll feed these dashboards that we're looking at now.
Sure. And this is an area that from a business perspective, this is where what we currently can't provide the business as a service right now. Doesn't mean that there aren't tools within the organization, but there's no standards right now about which one to use. And I know that from a business perspective, that's important, not just to Andrew's group, but a lot of the other departments, as well as to Charlie and IT. So this part's good.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, to give you a preview of the front end is, obviously all of us that are on the call as kind of data stewards, the hard work's already been done. It's already walked through the ETL process. It's been cleansed, it's been validated, and now essentially it's publishing these dashboards that we're looking at now. And you can see that there's these tabs here along the top. The tabs are typically set up based upon the role. If someone logs in, like you're using Hyperion Essbase today, so maybe I wanted to see financials, my actuals out of JD Edwards, my budget out of Excel or some other budgeting platform. A controller can come in, they can slice out a particular filter. They can see, well, it looks like we're overspending in sales, 32%, that's bad, red indicators glowing, making sure, bringing this data to light. I still have the ability to create a more of a structured statement by doing italicize or indentions. A lot of BI tools, they just have kind of nice, pretty pictures, right? They can come in and you can turn something to a column chart or to a pie chart or something like that. So not only do we also have all these different charts that are built in, and the system's intelligent enough to look at it and go, well, based on the data that you're looking at, these are some, charts that might be relevant. You can also come in and create more formatted controls and still have the flexibility of drilling down and all the way through to the underlying transaction detail. So that's usually what comes up, right? I produce this report, people question the numbers. This allows them to drill down to the root data, and that's coming out of JDE or BlueJ. And from a processing standpoint, should you ever use us for the JD Edwards information, we do incremental loading so that every 10 minutes I want to do a refresh of the data. I'm only going to go out and get the changed or the delta, the net new information. So you're not going to see, the lights dim, as all your users are, in JD Edwards trying to insert work orders and what have you. As someone runs some monster report, right, it doesn't bog the system down. Okay. I can show you a ton of these pre-built dashboards that we have, but from your perspective, usually what I care about or would care about is how easy is it to build these. Can I show you how to replicate one of these?
Sure.
Okay. So one is an analyst might come in and they might take this year-over-year sales report, and they can drill down like we did earlier. And I'm drilling through kind of this pre-established hierarchy of data, family, group, down to the product, right? And then maybe drilling all the way down to the transaction detail. One thing I didn't show on the last drill through was you can link to third-party systems or images. Like in this example, it's an invoice. It's a expense report, something like that. So really what we're trying to do is eliminate the amount of calls and emails that are going in for tickets in the back office to rewrite a report that probably you've already written 3 or 4 years ago, but just people forgot what it was called. Now what an end user can do is they can come in and go, well, this is great, but now I want to look at some additional information. I can go into a portfolio of pre-built reports, those ones that we had showed earlier in the PowerPoint, items that are around inventory, items that are around customer service, sales and operations, procurement, or what I can do is based on my security rights, I can build my own based on whatever's here along the left-hand side. And from the technical standpoint, what's going on is this is a tabular model or an OLAP cube running behind the scenes. That's essentially feeding this data. And then I, as a user, I can just come in. I can say, well, I want to see my sales by geography, by supplier, over a particular time period. And instead of viewing the data, as kind of this tabular or column, let's add some trends to it. And for geography, I've got, I'm on the top level, 1 of 4. I'm going to add a column. I'm going to change the metric. So maybe I don't want to look at sales. Maybe I want to look at volume as well, right? I could bring volume in or quantity. In this example, geography lends itself to being mapped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down to the customer level. I did a little shortcut there very quickly. And now when I go into my recommended visualizations, now I have map as an option. So it'll go ahead and plot this. with a little bit more time, you can add the heat mapping, you can set up your thresholds and alerts and things like that as well. Now, users can consume the information either dynamically in the web, they can dump it to Excel, PDF, or as an XML file. They can also email links directly to this report or schedule reports like we had talked about earlier. Any questions about kind of what we've covered?
No.
Okay. From a front end perspective, are we missing anything that users really request or ask for?
No, in fact, it probably has more than enough.
Oh, good, good. Well, then I'm going to pass control to Henry, and I'm going to make presenter. Henry, go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away. And no audio yet, Henry. Your mic shows it. There we are.
There we go. All right. So yeah, my name is Henry. I've been with Halo on the Halo side for about 2 years, and I actually started on the customer side. So I'm from Atlanta, so I actually worked at Aaron's, the rent-to-lease company up there in Kennesaw for a while, and they were bringing on Halo kind of in the same process as you guys and wanting to get away from the traditional tabular reporting into a more BI-focused enterprise tool, and they really wanted a good data warehouse tool on the back end that they could train people on, and then also have Halo help them either do most of the development for them or train their developers to use. So seen both sides of it as a customer and then now as a consultant. So I might be the person who's going to be doing the full implementation for you. So just to kind of give you more of an idea from a technical perspective, again, we'll be hosting it all up in Azure. So you won't have to worry about installing anything software. The only thing that we'll want to make sure we do is connect to your Active Directory through VPN, but that's usually a pretty simple transaction to occur. So after we do that, then it's basically getting the data set up to send over to Halo, which I think we've already talked about quite a bit, whether it's through an email that needs to be sent to us. And I think that's kind of what we had talked about. And then you guys just sending us that CSV or XML file every day. And then from there we can, go ahead.
That is Andrew. Yeah. So Rod, that was just something we discussed as an alternative. You know, with the capabilities that BlueJ has in scheduling and things like that, and all the different flat file formats, potentially taking that from an architecture approach if we had to, just to get propped up and running.
Right. So from the perspective of what you were talking about, Henry, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So you're coming from the perspective of at least a one-off or a current engagement, but kind of take a review of the different options available for your ETL part, rather than just an XML or a CSV for one particular engagement that we're talking about. So I'd be more interested in what are the options available. And the different type of maybe connectors that you have that are automatic, that type of stuff in your integration tool.
Yeah, great question. So that kind of leads into what you're looking at right now on the screen, which is our application on the back end. So, we can do all the heavy lifting for you, or we can go through a training session. Usually I come on site for a week and train a handful of developers on how to utilize the tool, and they're good to go from there. As far as bringing in new data sources, you want to approach finance, you want to get into more sales reporting, etc. So what you're looking at here is the back end tool. And when you get the license for Halo, you can connect to as many data sources as you want. You're not stuck with only connecting to the one for the license. That's a great thing about Halo. I like to mention, I think that kind of differentiates us from some of the other BI applications, is you can connect to as many data sources, whether it's AS400, whether it's SQL Server, Excel, Access, Oracle. So up here in the top, I'm going to show you quickly on how you connect to a new data connection. So if I click this drop down, by default, all of the ones you see right here are what we have. We do have some that are hidden that are just not used often, but these are the ones that we're getting by default to look at here.
Okay, so let me take a quick scan of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have Salesforce there. Do you have a ServiceNow connector?
ServiceNow, we do not, but I know I've personally pulled from their API before. So if you don't see a data connector here, our development team is good at just creating a new one and just adding it to the list. So through a little bit of custom development, we can create a data connector, provided that we just get the information related to it. And I think ServiceNow has an API that spits it back in like XML.
Is your JDE just using, pardon me?
Sorry, what data are you thinking about with ServiceNow? What's the use case? I'm kind of curious.
Well, currently, so internal to IT, we use their suite, and they have their own analytic reporting. But again, if we're using this as the standard, let's say, then rather than having reporting coming out of multiple applications, then if this was in the portfolio, depending on where the data was going, we would pull data from there as well. So the analytic reporting, as long as it's internal, I would see that as being used. So for instance, we have Salesforce, right? And Salesforce has a lot of reporting, and I wouldn't necessarily create the same type of reporting just to have it in another tool. But if it was cross-functional or cross-regional or something, and we were mixing Salesforce data with something else, then if this was the standard tool, then do it in that. I mean, that's generally from a global perspective how we do things. So I was just looking at your different connectors and where we have data stored.
Right. And I think that's what's appealing is that, oftentimes this is kind of initially funded by a departmental request, but expands throughout the enterprise, and it's not going to handcuff your team, again, by a limited amount of interfaces or by a technology issue. So.
Great. All right, so these are the connectors. It's as easy as coming in, selecting that connector. You get a pop-up, and then you come in here, and then you specify the parameters for that. We can set up a VPN to particular data sources, or if it comes in and you want to just throw some budget data on here within an Excel file, then I come in here, just like we already had an example of your data, and I specify that Excel file, and now I have a connection to that data. And then from there, you're going to come into actually doing the data modeling. So you can see as I come in here, I'm going super quick, but now I'm connecting to that particular Excel file. I'm coming in here. I can see all the different fields within that particular table. You can preview them. You can see some different data profiling. You can select only the ones that you want. Bring them in, then you extract it. Halo's sitting on top of a SQL Server environment, so it's just going to bring it into the database, and then you can go into Management Studio and then look at the data. So once you bring in all of your tables, again, like Brandon mentioned, if we go into JDE, we have a lot of these predefined already, so we just connect to your source, and then we just automatically pull all the tables in. We go into the dimensional modeling to start to create product dimensions, other ones and such. From there, we start to create cubes. So here you can see we have a sales cube. We might create a cost to serve cube, get into HR, also can get into ServiceNow, so we can look at some of the calls and the tickets that are coming in. And then from here, we set up the different metrics. You're not limited to the amount of metrics that you can see in Halo. I've seen people have, different subject areas of data up to a few hundred metrics, the same. Halo's optimized for having many metrics and a lot of data. And based off of the data that I've seen from you all, it should run just with the blink of an eye. So not concerned there. And then from there, Halo automatically sets up workflows to automate that data. So you can specify if you want Halo to update every hour, every day. You know, just depends on how often you want to send the data to Halo or how often it updates in the data source.
So you mentioned, just a quick question on your integrations that can happen frequently. In Salesforce, they limit the number of transactions that can go through so it doesn't, what kind of limitations or throttles do you guys have for that? Any?
Specifically, are you just, so we can pull as much data as the data source allows us to pull. So we don't have any limitations on, you know, Halo can only bring over 1 gig a day or, you know, these many transactions. It really just depends on the pipeline to grab the data and how fast it comes over. So
Yeah,
Halo can hold as much.
With Salesforce, it isn't a limitation per day, but the throttle is throughput. You know, how many records would they allow you to bring in at a given 10-minute, 20-minute increments type thing? So they're not.
Yeah, so I do have a technical document as far as like the bandwidth and everything, but some of the data sources that I'm using are pulling in, right now I probably pulled in 500 million records within an hour from a table. So it just depends on the connection and the VPN.
Yeah, I think what Henry's pointed out is we can go as fast as we're allowed to go by the host system. So, you know, yeah, Salesforce has a maximum amount. We can pull that maximum amount, schedule it, that we can go back as soon as time is allowed and start where we left off. Does that help?
Well, I guess if you were referencing Salesforce, yes, but you're saying on your side there is nothing like that as far as any governance or and I don't mean governance like I mean like governing or throttling the amount of data throughput at any given time. You're saying that might be, if there's a restriction on the source side, fine, but from your side as input or throughput, no.
You mean as an end user that's running a query?
No, I'm talking about the transfer of data into from the source, like JD Edwards, about the number of transactions. He just said he did 500 million records in an hour, so I'm assuming that there's no limitations on that type of throughput.
Nope.
No, but it sounds like you want limitations.
No. Opposite.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Then you're covered.
Yeah.
Good.
I was asking from the side, is there any? Because on the Salesforce side, we do run into those limitations. But on putting data into Salesforce, so I'm saying in this side, we don't have those limitations, and that's good. That's fine.
Good.
Unless I confused you.
Nope, no limitations.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep, so that's kind of quick and dirty in the backend tool. Again, you can connect to as many data sources. This project's already been set up.
About your ETL, so you showed me the data integrations, but we didn't go over the transformation part of it, where you do your mapping in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're familiar with dimensional modeling, bringing in the data, these are the actual fact tables. So from a BI perspective, coming in here, you can put your own SQL query if you want to in there and just copy and paste it in there, or you can use the GUI, which allows an end user to drag and drop. So if I come in here and then I use the query builder, I can start to drag in. Go ahead.
So if we have a lot of cubes already in SQL and we have a lot of integrations that build the dimensions and the fact tables and that, then we could be able. I mean, it looks like we could copy the SQL commands from that and have a fast up and running on a lot of that stuff.
That would be awesome. It would cut down on costs and help with validation, make everything go fast. So yeah. So, some of the mappings in here of where you're actually mapping different metrics to the different fields in the data, creating different hierarchies here. Same thing goes for like if you're doing something by product, you're establishing the different metrics or the different attributes of that product. And then finally in the queue, when you're doing the dimensional modeling, here you're linking the particular dimensions to the fact table fields here. So I think that's kind of what you were getting at.
Yep. Very good.
And it's just a matter of coming in here and setting set mapping for this dimension maps to that fact table field. Anything else? That's all I had planned to show you from a demo perspective.
No, for this discussion, that was fine. I don't have any more questions about it.
Halo handles slowly changing dimensions. If you get into that, sounds like you got some good technical experience, so that's a big plus too.
We have some of that, yeah. Not tons, but we do run into those occasionally.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your time. Andrew, Joel, any other questions from your side?
No, I think I think we're very comfortable, with the solution, and hopefully this gets Rod's wheels spinning on potentially other applications within other functional areas as well.
Okay. Well, Rod, thank you for your time. I'll post this as, again, a private link within YouTube. Only folks that have this exact link will be able to access it. They can't search and find it, and I'm not putting your names in it. It's just going to be a Halo link. So after that, Andrew, you and I should follow up about the 19th, and that's all we have for today. So we'll give you 20 minutes of your day back.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.